to get there. But guys, we're loading into the next match here. I'm going to let you guys take this away. Of course, we've got Antimatter versus Oxygen. This is going to be an exciting series. Guys, take it away.
Yep, very excited for this one. Of course, we already kind of mentioned the stakes going into this one, Andy, how things are very different to round number 1, where maybe Oxygen had a bit of an easy time. It might not be the case here. Once again, there is a tiny bit of history going on between these two teams, so there is a bit of blood left on the battlefield here.
And what I'm being told as well in the back end is that Neighbor has the most wins in Halo Infinite rank playlist. The most wins. This man has been grinding. There's a couple streams I've been bouncing around with, and ever since day number 1, I got the pleasure to be able to see the OG straight rip and play together, including T-Squared and Elamite Warrior. Then, of course, that includes Neighbor. I mean, it all started right there. I mean, ever since then, whether it's solo duo or the open queue, dude's just been grinding the hell out of the game. He's a multiple MLG event winner, both in Halo 2 and Halo 3. You know, there's a certain amount of veteranship and experience that they bring to the table. When you're coupling along with that, what Saintly like Active was talking about, well, it could be a very tough roster for Oxygen to go up against.
Yeah, and before we get right into the swing of things here with this map, I kind of want to talk very briefly about how Livewire works a bit different in terms of this map, in terms of strongholds on this map, right? Because we spoke about this quite significantly. Generally speaking, we had a bit of a disagreement a few nights ago on how to play this map, and I will happily admit that I was wrong, because this is pretty different in terms of the way that you're supposed to play the map. You're not supposed to really hold on to 2 points and try and spawn trap people in. You're supposed to try and rotate as much as possible.
Yeah, there's 2 different ways that I've seen success here on strongholds. I mean, you can try to go for the CB hold, and with the CB hold, of course, you can see, especially from this perspective, with the sniper in hand, it gets you a lot of power positions to be able to overlook inside of that commando, right inside a garage. But the most successful that I've seen any teams just playing this map mode combo, Brody, is the rotating style, right? I mean, you're just reading where spawns are coming from, and then you counter rotate, almost like a chess game. You want to just always put yourself on the counter rotation, making sure that you keep 2 flags within your name, and from there on out, just keep on creeping up that scoreline.
Well, so far, I said this might be a close game. It hasn't been right off the bat. Look at this, 70-0. Not a single point given away to their opposition. This has been a solid start overall here for Oxygen Esports. And I think just generally speaking here, when you're kind of down bad this early on in the game, again, I say this very often, but you will need to kind of hit a mental regain, if you will, just take a step back, even in the middle of the game, which is very hard to do, to try and grab some points and just start playing as a team.
Realize he's going to see one that drops down low. Tries to chase for the elimination, though. Haynes on the opposite side for C ramp will be cleaning them up, but yeah, I mean, it's just about hitting the regain going forward, right? Because so far, especially for Antimatter, you're only really working off of this A stronghold, which you're about to be losing. Over shield will end up being picked up by Realize, and well, this has got to be the go time going forward. You got to be able to find a lot of value just off of this power up alone. Looks like that they want to go back through this top middle side and seeing if they can catch a couple players off guard. And it definitely begs the conversation of what you're seeing in discrepancies between these two teams. Oxygen obviously spending a lot of time playing together since Halo Infinite's launch. I would almost assume that Antimatter going forward might be closer to a pickup roster, although very decorative between a lot of the individuals that are representing this team right now, Brody. They're going to have their work cut out for them versus the teamwork of Oxygen.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're seeing already here, right out the gate, it seems like Oxygen are a little bit well put together in comparison to what Antimatter are able to do. We'll see if Antimatter can get something going here, but it doesn't look like it will happen at game number 1, short of an incredible comeback. This might well just be a good Oxygen start here in this best of 3. We'll stick on board over towards Swish here as he has a teammate in tow. Nice nade, well played from Common as well, as that's a nice 2-piece to kick off that push towards B. And all 3 strongholds in favor. This tick will go further and further up. Map control fully in favor of Oxygen as they continue to dominate here.
Yep, they're just isolating players, just split spawning them on every single side of the map. Power weapons have been absolutely grabbed on all different accounts. And you can see right here, especially for Common with that sniper rifle, we got to see what they were able to do back on Livefire Slayer with it. And now they're just continuing on with that rampage. Up to about 9-3, 12-2 for Swish. Tough engagement versus the Heat Wave. We'll end up losing that battle. A tough one up close unless you land that very tasty no-scope headshot, but it doesn't come through. But 208-0, 2 strongholds to the 1. Not even an opportunity to potentially get yourself on the board here if you are Antimatter. It's just really good teamwork that's coming through from Oxygen. I mean, even when they lost that initial stronghold, the moment that you get back on it, it stops the score versus the team with the 2 caps. There's 24 points needed here, Brody, before we go to game 2.
Yeah, that seems to be the problem, doesn't it, Andy? I mean, every time that Antimatter get these guys off one of their points, so well, guess what? They're popping up elsewhere and causing more and more problems as well. Take a look over towards what could be the final few moments of this game. Antimatter trying to get control over towards B. Gunfight coming in here for a neighbor. Will now actually capture B, and how about this for a flip of events? They will finally get some points on the board. They'll grab every single stronghold, and well, how about this for a situation? It would be one hell of a miracle, wouldn't it, Andy, if this happened?
I mean, this would be definitely a come. Look, I mean, Halo Infinite's still in its baby phase right now, and as far as multiplayer is concerned, we're all very much so excited to be here, but this would definitely be one for the books. If they can make this comeback happen, players top Nest will end up being looked at and slightly dealt with. Saintly trying to double on down. Common will put them to rest as the rest of Oxygen shift their focus back over towards this B side.
Yeah, it didn't last that long, it would seem, as B has now been lost to Common and another player there over from Oxygen. We're going to see Realize try to go for C, and well, he will successfully capture it. And they now go for B as well. Remember, this is all about those all-important rotations. Can this happen? It's going to be a player right in front of him from Oxygen, just wasting time away. And it's going to be Swish even winning that fight. Brilliantly done from him, as now C will look to go the way of Oxygen Esports. But there has actually been a significant chunk of points here given away to Antimatter. They've done well to kind of climb even back into this game even slightly.
Like I said, come back at the century, but you're seeing a very stark difference from the beginning of the map for Antimatter, and now they're just doubling up together, trying to deal with the opposition as a team. Presence on B so far for Oxygen is actually going to be dealt with. Look at this pinch that's about to be coming through. Name on the backside will end up finding one. Very frustrating experience, I'm sure, so far for Antimatter, but at least they don't get completely blown out so far. A triple capture might just come through. No, C will get flipped. And that should just be the final nail in the coffin, barring some minor bit of heroics. Just 8 points needed here before Oxygen will send us towards a Street Slayer, and it looks like that it might just come through, barring any heroics that happen here on B. But there are some presence over here for Antimatter on B. They're staying in it, Brody. I mean, by the skin on or the hairs on their chin, they're just barely staying within this game.
Yeah, it's again, it is just about rotating. Just rotate as quickly as you possibly can to stay in this game at this point if you're Antimatter. I mean, they're 6 points shy of loss here in game number 1. Slapdown coming on through there as a player will fall on A, and now looking to capture B is going to be its name. Points now coming on through. All they got to do is go for A here, unless somebody can go on to B and C, and that will not happen. So, finishing out game number 1 will be Oxygen Esports 252-81, and well, a solid victory for them there. It was a little bit concerning for Antimatter right out the gate. I thought it might be more of a stomping, but it doesn't happen. And actually, I will say, fair play to them to even manage to get that amount of points to stabilize in the manner that they did, but it was ultimately too long.
Yeah, I mean, once they ended up finding those 3 down, they were able to stabilize, just whether that was on top nest. It all started from that C control side, right? Once they got from that C stronghold, it was just about pushing their way over towards B and enforcing those rotations, like you were talking about, Brody, through that 7 minutes and 15 seconds that we had on live fire strongholds. It was a blitzkrieg. I mean, 81 points is definitely better looking than 0, I would definitely say, but we got to see a little bit of resurgence come through, but that's also some of the most annoyance that can come through, especially on a map like live fire, and what Oxygen were able to exploit so wonderfully were those very key rotations, not necessarily always outplaying their opponents. Yeah, there were a lot of ones that I'm sure that a lot of these Antimatter players were very frustrated that they couldn't end up winning, but what it mostly comes down to, and you'll see it in some of these highlights, it was just overall just teamwork, chemistry, working together through these rotations, pinching together on one another. It all started from the sniper rifle. Started to see Haynes was just a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, just Dome's fantasy right out the gate there. You gotta feel the fantasy. He just sat in the corner like, yeah, I'll be safe here. Don't worry about me. Leave me alone. I'm all good, guys. I'm not doing anything that will harm you. And then, well, snipe straight to the head coming in there. So sometimes that do just be the way it is. As right at the gate again, you saw it. 244 to 88. Ticker goes up towards the end for Antimatter, but it was just too little too late. They just got themselves going way too late into the game, and they do end up taking an L there at the end of game number 1. But as I said, that comeback towards the end, it was important. It's good for the mental health towards the end of the game to make sure that your head is in the right place, because you know that it is absolutely possible for you to at least have a good few moments against a squad like Oxygen. And if you can just do that for a little bit longer, say, what, an entire game here of Slayer? Hey, who knows what could happen, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, like, we got our homeboy of Active in the back of our ears right now. I'm sure that he is just smiling from cheek to cheek, ear to ear, just waiting to see if anybody picks up that stalker rifle and finds a lot of value with it if you do start on that Charlie side. But even still, this weapon is mostly just controlled and dictated just through the middle of the map to begin with. That M41 Spanker is everything when it comes up in rotation as we start here on Street Slayer. It needs to be a big showing here for Antimatter to force it to that Aquarius CTF.
Indeed it does. We're going to ask questions of them, Andy. Can they make this one happen? Can they really pull their fingers out here in this game and push this to a game number 3, which of course would be Aquarius CTF? Well, we shall find out as we get right into this one. We're on for Slayer, and I'm very intrigued here as a first look against a more capable squad. How do Oxygen play this? Do they try and play as a team? Do they try and pay for these power weapons, more accurately these rockets? Well, we have the answer to that one, as its name did grab those rockets off the ground, but Nice Nade coming in from Fantasy also gets the kill for the second as well. And it's not a terrible start here for Antimatter. They're doing well.
No, it's not, and you're going to be able to communicate that the Spanker is currently down in ATM. You also have the Bulldog being commanded by Fantasy. Actually is working with the Bulldog and the Spanker as well, trying to push for one more. Can they find it? Very tough to be able to lock down Haynes. The movement is insane, as I believe that we actually lost one player for Oxygen, but even still, like you said, I mean, it's not a bad start for Antimatter by any stretch of the imagination. You started off on that Charlie Stronghold side. They immediately pushed over towards that Arcade Street. As we're going to have a little bit of a reset here. Again, competitive integrity is everything when it comes down to the Halo Championship Series, but even still, if you can try to replicate that start, continue on through the middle of the map. This is also, given that they started on the Charlie side, that overlook on that C balcony is everything. Again, with that Stalker rifle, you can lock down that entire middle lane, making it an absolute nuisance for the team that starts on the PD side, Brody, to even think about getting whether that's top A or to work their way down the middle of the street to try to grab the M41 Spanker.
Yeah, that Spanker is really important in any game of Streets, right? As soon as you're able to grab that, you know, you're in such a great position. Of course, you've got 2 opportunities to wipe a couple of players off the map. And, well, we've seen players do damage with it quite significantly, of course, over the last HGS Open last weekend. And now in this one already, we're starting to see these players pick it up and make good use of it. But that, to me, is going to be one of the difference makers, actually, I think, going forward. Again, I kind of did talk about it earlier on, is how well these teams are able to play around these power weapons and these power-ups on all of the maps. And specifically on this one, it is very important to see how these guys play the break-offs and how they play around that Spanker and just generally speaking around the map right out the gate. And of course, as you say, Andy, you know, we'd see a great start really for both teams there. They seem to know what they were doing right out of the gate. It was just unfortunate that we had to lose a player. But I'm happy that these guys are playing really well. You know, they're being nice to one another. The sportsmanship is there, I should say. The e-sportsmanship is there between these guys, and they're going to give this one a good start. So I'm very excited to see what happens here in game number 2. We're going back to Streets for that Slayer game once more. And, you know, I'm kind of pulling for game number 3 here, Andy. I want to see it. I can't lie. It would just be nice, wouldn't it?
It absolutely would. Let us know what you guys think, whether it's inside the Twitch chat or, again, our main sponsor for the day is r/competitive Halo. Go ahead and start a post over there. Let us know how you're feeling about the entirety of the Open, the 2,000 plus players that are competing on the weekend. We want to know your thoughts. We'll end up talking about that in a very juicy way throughout the entirety of this day. It's going to be a long one. Strap yourselves in for the restart here on Street Slayer. Again, should be Antimatter starting off on that Charlie Stronghold side, which again, you're going to be looking at that Stalker rifle up on that C balcony. Neighbor was the one to pick it up and find value with it, just locking down the middle of that entirety of the streets to try to work your way for that M41 Spanker while also getting B Street control.
All right, well, it seems that we're going for a restart once again here. Something must have gone wrong. Not sure if a player, once again, did crash out of the lobby. Of course, that can happen every so often. So we'll hit the regain once again, and we'll go for a 3rd time lucky here on Street. Now, yeah, I don't know, dude. I'm really excited to see sort of how these games do go underway. I just want to kind of take a step back quickly and just talk about the state that Halo Infinite is in right out the gate, because you and I, we've been loving it so much, Andy. We've been spending pretty much every waking hour of the day just playing Halo Infinite. Yeah, sometimes I'm just sitting there thinking I'm playing Halo when I'm asleep. But it's just in such a good spot at the moment, and it's crazy to see kind of this incredible resurgence of Halo to the point where today we have 512 teams competing in the bracket.
And that's only North America, keep in mind, you. I mean, we're talking like closer to about like 50 teams for
right?
AZN, over 100 teams for EU. That's how I started my day. I literally rolled out of bed at about 7 o'clock in the morning, went to go hit the treadmill one time, and I pulled up Navi's perspective, Jimbo's perspective, just to be able to start the entirety of the day, just trying to soak in as much as humanly possible how I went to bed last night. I was watching, what was the Sentinel scrimmage as well, as I believe that we're going to be bringing in Active here just to hear his thoughts. Again, homie, I brought up the idea, especially for that Stalker rifle. Got to see Neighbor find a little bit of value with it, but how you feeling about the series so far, man?
Antimatter's got to clutch up here, okay? We're going to see a game 3. That first map, they were just trying to get some rust off a little bit, maybe trying to like figure each other out. And then they started to come back. They started to get some more points towards the end. It was too little too late. But I got to see these guys come back. Stanley did not have even close to a performance that I'm usually, seeing out of him. So I'd like to see him perform in this next map. I'd like to see Neighbor come through and bring a little bit of that veteran knowledge to the game. Like, calm these players down, maybe like reset, like Infinity had said, reset their brain, kind of come back and take this next map. I think they're gonna do it. I just have a feeling, and we're gonna go to a game 3. I really hope.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's gonna have to come by through, like, you would think, from everything that you just said, yeah, like, in full circumference of just overall team play, right? Because one thing that I did bring up, especially during that live fire, is that it's a very potential for this pickup squad, more or less, for this Antimatter roster going up against Oxygen, that you do need that veteranship from Neighbor to be able to calm these players down. You got to see a lot of that at the end of the Strongholds, where we got to see them just being able to work away with a lot of those power-ups. We got to see them control a little bit more of the middle of the map and focus on some of those key rotations. A lot of that does have to come through. You would hope so for Streets to force out that Aquarius CTF, as we're going back through some highlights there on map number 1.
Yeah, and I mean, the Slayer, that's another thing you said, like the pickup squad. Like a Slayer is a map that they can take, and then they can build off that momentum going into the Aquarius map. I think that this Slayer is obviously important to just keep them in the winner's bracket, but not only that, it's important for momentum in game number 3. I really do feel like Oxygen Esports is a better objective team just based off of what we saw the first game. But in a Slayer, it's kind of a toss-up. Slayer is one of those game types that a lot of these top players want to take out. Honestly, it's been a big conversation in competitive Halo. Of course, definitely go to the competitive Halo Reddit and check out some of the conversations we're having. But yeah, like a lot of pro players want to take out the Slayer. They want to get it out of the map rotation and maybe have it for only a game 5 or only a last game in a series. But for me, I like the Slayer. Maybe the last game would be a good spot for it, but it's really a toss-up, and it gives teams a chance. And it's better in terms of being in the audience, it's better for an observer to watch, that toss-up kind of game and just frags going back and forth. It's much easier to understand, and I think they take this map, they just pull it together a little bit. They've got a really great squad here. Hopefully, we'll see that coming up next. Guys, I think we're hopping into the game, and hopefully we have no disconnects here. Take it away.
All right, third time lucky, Annie. This time, we're not going to have any disconnects. I'm telling you, this is going to be it. Now, you talk about the break-off right from the off. Who is going to grab that power weapon right off the bat?
Well, it immediately is going to be grabbed. You can see the Spanker will end up being utilized through the middle of the map, and beating to the punch so far is going to be Oxygen. But even still, I believe that the different sides had been flipped on us just to be able to start this map all over again. But regardless of the matter, middle of the map, presence was already there for Oxygen. You can see Haynes and Common starting off on 2 kills themselves, working with a lot of different power weapons, trying to work their way on the backside of tires and bricks, seeing if they can get Beach Streets control.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I rate this play coming in from Realize. He wants to get the kill with the Sentinel Beam, and I don't blame him for this whatsoever. Can he get it done, though? We'll have to switch towards the BR to make sure he finishes that gunfight against 1. So big kill coming actually from Swish, who actually does have this Sentinel Beam, and well, there it is. He's able to get a kill with this one as well. This is what you love to see, a nice little bit of vigor coming out of play early on here from Oxygen Esports, as they will start this one in a good stead. 9-4 so far, and man, I'll make it 11-5. The tick keeps on going up now in favor of Oxygen. They're playing well as a team early on. And
this is what Active was talking about. When things start going a little bit of awry, I mean, we're starting to see about double the score. I know it's still early, 12v5 as it currently stands so far, but even still, this is when Neighbor needs to come into the comms, calm these boys down, start grouping back up together, look at what power weapons are going to be playing with next, and try to take some power positions away from the enemy team. You can see Common finding one player down low inside of Charlie. That's actually Neighbor. Has to force their way back up through driveway. So far, the Arcade Streets is in possession for Antimatter. They're not holding on to it for too long. They're trying to zone away through the middle of the map as the M41 Spanker comes up in 5.
Spanker's up in 5, and we're going to see Neighbor try and play for this one. Is he alone, though? That's the question. He does have a couple of players around him he will need to take down to grab it. There is Name for the first. The Spanker now up, and he will go for the grab. And, well, Spanker in hand now. This should enable him to have some power on the map at the very least. And the first one, well, will actually be wasted. I think the teammate actually grabbed that kill there. Saintly going to grab that one away from him. So just one more rocket now in the magazine as the player's now going to spawn up over towards Arcade. The best chance for him at the moment is to just try and play the map, hold that rocket away for the moment until he finds more app time to use it.
Players inside of PD on the backside of A will find the connection on the rocket. One more just around the corner, though Neighbor was already weak. But whether the rocket was wasted or not doesn't necessarily matter to me personally. It's just about burning the rockets and finding just as little or as much value as you possibly can. You can see what that map position was able to do for all of Antimatter. They were able to work their way back up to about a total of 15 kills, just down by 2. Stalker rifle in the hands of Name. Can't really lock things down as much. Again, a 3-shot perfect is what you're mostly looking for. All those headshots can be really annoying to take when you are on that C balcony. Always getting D-scope from eating a whole bunch of shots, but nobody read that Name and ended up pushing all the way through these B pillars up on that balcony. Finds themselves a nice little 2-piece, and there's the perfect to come through on driveway.
We do love these perfects coming in here from its Name. He proved himself earlier on that live fire. Now looking to once again do it here.
Cobra team halfway to victory.
Just hold himself steady for the moment as the rest of his team fly out towards the middle of the map. Just going to be zoning, and this is the best idea. Don't just fire yourself at the other team. Put yourself in any potential 1v2 situations, and holding onto this driveway LOS, perfect to try and grab these kills with the carbine.
Just raiding. You can see there's actually zoning that's happening over on the Neon side, over by the Purple Streets, right outside of Cafe. This is going to continuously force all of Antimatter to spawn inside of that station, and this is why you're just holding down these long angles. The blind trust coming through from Oxygen just to look down towards that Neon sign. You got players up on top of B Street just zoning away the middle of the map. Neighbor got the last rockets, though Oxygen do not want to lose this spawn this time around.
Yeah, I really like this from Oxygen, actually. They're playing the map so well. Now going to pick up the Spanker. Is going to be Name, is now playing over towards the train station. Look at this coming in here from Oxygen. Turns around. Oh, that would have been nice if he could catch it. The second attempt will connect this time around. A player will be down for the count. I believe that was going to be Neighbor. They get caught up in that rocket splash. And well, would you look at that? Oxygen now starting to pick up the tempo and the pace here in this game as we switch our attention over towards Common. Sees one potential victim in the middle of the map. We'll have to play around the oddball spawn for it. Give it easily enough. Bring around the Rosie we go. Common going for it. The slap will finish off saintly, but gets traded off. Common took a while to finish that gunfight, but at the end of the day here, Andy, not much is changing. The score differential between these two teams at the moment hasn't shifted that much.
Yeah, that 2 discrepancy quickly built itself back up to 10 just through the middle of the map pressure. They were able to then work their way inside of C, and that forced them to spawn all of Antimatter over by Cafe. And reading spawn so far of what we see from Oxygen has been an all-time high. We saw that early in their Winners Round 1 match versus Perception. They're on live fire, and here on Streets, it's just as linear. Nice little 2-piece does come through there for Fantasy. Got to be able to build off momentum. Just 38 eliminations that currently hold for Oxygen. Just 12 to win, 10 behind currently for Antimatter.
12 to win, and Oxygen have been able to set the pace of this game pretty much however they like it at their leisure in this one so far. Can Fantasy do anything about it? Not when you're taking a 1-on-2 like that. We're going to see from another POV. I believe that's going to be a 2-piece coming in there from whoever was up. Common will end up falling foul to that player, and that was a nice way to try and build some momentum, but it might well be too late in this game. Again, this 10-point differential just hasn't changed all that much. The way that Oxygen have played has been sublime. See whether or not Saintly can change the situation up here. We'll push a player into Fancy over towards Arcade. Actually going to get a double kill there, and against Name as well. That is a great start to any potential comeback, but gets taken right back down, and well, still 6 kills away from victory or Oxygen.
Yeah, Spanker will be dropped down in the middle of the map, and we'll kind of try to drop and contest this. We'll go for the trade. Haynes is 20-8, by the way, just very casual stuff, just about half the team's eliminations. 3 more eliminations are all that is needed here for Oxygen to close out this series into maps. Don't want to go to Aquarius CTF here, just want to go ahead and put themselves into winners round 3.
Haynes on 20 kills at the moment. Would you
Casual.
freaking believe it? This guy, just casual 20 kills. Don't you worry about it. Common also not that far behind at 14 as the game is going to finish. Haynes with 21 kills. That's a possible 50, by the way, guys. 21 frags to his name at the end of the game. An insane performance by Haynes to close out game number 2 and round number 2 there, therefore, for Oxygen Esports. Silly me. You know, I was talking about the possibility of Antimatter coming out here and causing an early upset in round 2. What do I know, hey? As Oxygen Esports come out and they put a stop to any of those Chinese whispers.
Plus 15, 21, and 8 there for Haynes was an absolute phenom on the map. And a lot of that was brought to you by the battle rifle. Again, you can see what they were able to bring to the table, just locking down the lanes, just always rotating, finding those team shots with their teammates. I mean, there was only really one chance or one time that I saw Antimatter being able to really dictate the pace of that Streets Slayer Brody, and that mostly came through when Neighbor was playing inside of ATM, was able to get those rockets. Although they only found one elimination, once they all ended up getting wiped off the map, they immediately all got spawn trapped inside of that train station. Not the most fun place to be at. You almost have to battle yourself out from two different sides. But the way that Oxygen are playing these Slayer maps, just controlling the spawns, dictating both of the side lanes and looking through the middle of the map, know exactly where they're going to be forcing all of Antimatter to spawn in. The collapse was brilliant, and overall, the eliminations to follow through were even prettier.
Yeah, this is just cheeky, by the way. Swish early on using that Sentinel Beam to really partake in the early advantage for Oxygen Esports. The fact that he even held onto it for as long as he did, confidently so, is really, I think, a statement of just how good Oxygen are feeling early on here in this tournament. And why wouldn't you be at the kind of performances they've played here early in round number 1 and 2? They should be extremely happy with themselves. But now, while we're watching this replays, I do want to talk about the fact that Antimatter, they definitely made Oxygen thinking about it. Comparing that round number 1 to round number 2, I think that round number 1 victory for Oxygen was a little bit more, I would say, mindless in a way. They were kind of just running around the map doing what they do best, getting the kills and therefore the objectives off the back of that. But in this one, you could definitely feel the map control and kind of the thought process going through Oxygen's heads.
I mean, all the thought process is just coming through, just slay the hell out. Get these power weapons, work off these power positions, and in this power position right here, I mean, the Stalker Rifle all the way over by C, I don't think anybody was fully aware what Name was able to do, pushing their way through this B pillar side and then getting themselves up on top of this balcony. It was this position right here that I think was the end goal for Oxygen, just to be able to get on this A stronghold side, back PD, and then just controlling the Neon and Cafe Street side. By doing so, again, forcing all of Antimatter to spawn on that C side, it's just so hard to be able to combat and back from. That's exactly why when you do play Streets on strongholds, you much prefer to be on this side of the map, because you can really dictate the pace. You're almost given a lot of high ground, minus the balcony that you can play with over by the train station. But as far as their thought process was concerned, you got to see it just come through in spades here.
Just incredible coming out of Oxygen at the end of round number 2. This highlight reel, one of the longest we've seen today, is, well, just a great game, I think, overall. And, I don't think we can talk about this game without talking about the fact that Haynes managed to get 21 frags at the end of the game. Just played so well. And I'm going to ask Active here what he thought about Haynes' performance and overall there, Oxygen in total, because just what an incredible performance there, round number 2 for Oxygen.
I'm very disappointed in Antimatter. They could perform so much better. I hope to see them come through the losers bracket and fight through. They're a great group of players, and they didn't perform. Obviously, we saw that there. There's a couple things I want to point out of that series that I was able to kind of notice. Unfortunately, I was able to be a pilot in the 343 Halo Infinite program, so I was able to play Halo Infinite early on this year in February. And one thing I noticed and one thing I've learned is that 343 is really trying to make us utilize the sandbox. And a lot of these players are not doing that. And you saw that Oxygen Esports, they were always with the Sentinel Beam, they were always with the Stalker Rifle, they were always utilizing the weapons on the map. Whereas, Antimatter is kind of going the old school style, just using the BR. And as strong as the BR is, it's not as strong as some of these other weapons. That Sentinel Beam melts, okay? That Stalker Rifle melts. Like, these guns are really good. The thruster on the map, I mean, the wall, the players are going to learn as time goes on that these things need to be utilized. The sandbox needs to be utilized in order to win these games.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think, we discussed this before we even got into the entire thing, right? Before we even got into the broadcast, the fact that there are just so many different things on the map that you absolutely need to be utilizing. And you're absolutely right to point out the fact that Antimatter there maybe weren't utilizing them as well. I will say, I think the Sentinel Beam adds a little bit of style to gameplay that maybe we don't see regularly with the BR. So it's nice to see it being used there in gameplay. But yeah, I think as we go further on throughout the tournament, throughout today, we will be seeing more and more usage of these weapons. And as you point out, actually, the thrusters, really important when it comes to these gunfights. You can absolutely duke your opposition out, especially when it comes down to these precision. You've got to make sure you land headshots with these BRs. These thrusters can be incredibly important to make sure those